I'm exploring how Geelong is turning its industrial heritage into hubs for creative industries. At the Federal Woolen Mills, I found a new tech hub nestled in a revitalised industrial shell.
It just went boom overnight.
These big buildings were built to support these, emerging industries.
Next, an extraordinary hidden treasure being brought back from the brink.
And I came here just looking, where can I make wine, how can I make wine? But I know now that I'm just part of the living history.
This is the Barwon River, named after the local Indigenous word for magpie, Barwon. And here stands an industrial relic that was built in the boom that followed the gold rush. This is some of Australia's oldest industrial heritage, the Fyansford paper mills. Built 140 years ago, in the 1870s, it was powered by a water race diverted from the Barwon River. However, its industrial utility waned. It was neglected and almost forgotten, except as that old place across the river. Fyansford was eventually purchased by skilled heritage builder Alex Robbins. And what was it like when you first got here?
It was run down. It had a lot of old cars. There were up to 60 cars in the paddock.
There were 60 cars
in the paddock. And there was a lot of what I would describe the wrong sort of activities occurring on site.
Yeah.
The heritage person from the council was with a community group, trying to buy this site. They couldn't do it, and she thought that we would look after it more than most people, and said, if you need to look at it, you've got a day to look at it because it's going to be sold to a container company.
A day.
And we came down, put a deposit and purchased the site.
Wear and tear on neglected buildings of this age would stop many from taking on their redevelopment.
Quite rudely, I walked in first.
That's all fine. You know the way. So have you had to do much in here? These look like they're original beams, aren't they?
They're in reasonable condition. There's been repairs, and we've had to strengthen. This wall had rotated out up to 300 mil. So these trusses are a very fine solid steel bottom chord and king post, etc. You don't see many of these types of roof trusses in Australia.
And have you had to restore much of this part of the building?
Yes, we have. Here's an example up here.
Yes.
Where we had some severe dry rot. You can see that capitals and the tie beams have been replaced. We've had to lift the roof up to 60 to 100 mil in spots. We don't want to make it dead right, we want to make it at least safe and that it looks reasonable to the eye.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was again the issue of water getting in and doing severe damage. If they just fixed the gutter, they wouldn't have had this problem with this beautiful old building.
And did you do that all yourself?
Yes.
So it's a work of love as well,
Well,
isn't it?
with young Jono, who's up in the scissor lift.
Fantastic. Repair is just the beginning. Repurposing each building requires finding the right people to use it. This space is destined for a future as a winery.
You just can't buy this stuff or build this stuff these days. First of all, I come in here and see, 450 mil thick bluestone walls and think, hello, that's a good spot for a cellar. And that bluestone was in the ground here and was hewn out of the ground and used where it came from. But before it was taken out of the ground, Aboriginal people were here,
Yeah.
you know, using the pools in the river and whatnot. And I just think it's this whole interaction with people and landscapes and buildings that I have never really thought about before, but being involved in this project and repurposing the building for that has made me think about all of that.
Scott Island's winery will celebrate the Geelong region.
Our intention is to be making wine off different vineyards, different sites around the region, and it's a truism in wine that wine tastes like it does because of where it comes from. The French call that terroir. I like to think of it as in country, you know, in Australian terms. The wine that we tasted just before, that's from a single vineyard 5 kilometres west of here on the outskirts of Bannockburn, and it tastes like that because it came from where it came from. And if you think about the bluestone being hewn out of the ground here and then built into walls, we're doing that with food and wine and taking the region to the world, or whoever comes through that door.
Fantastic. Commercial viability is breathing life back into these industrial buildings, many of which are filled with extraordinary architectural details. This space, the Grand Hall, would once have been central to the manufacture of paper.
This room was where a lot of the machines were set up to mash up the fibre, whether it be a cotton, sailcloths, clothing, and then later on timber fibre, as we know most paper is made of. And it's a space that's got some beautiful architectural features, particularly with the stone arch, which was in basically a factory. What I've always referred to it as an industrial cathedral, this area.
The connections with the past that these unique spaces offer are of real commercial value. The attractions of the Great Hall weren't lost on local events specialist Hugh Palmer of Truffleduck.
I mean, we knew this existed.
Yeah.
We didn't realise the potential of it until Alex came across one day and said, I've got this space, I'd like you to come and have a look at it. Well, we are doing weddings in barns, in shearing sheds, in the middle of the paddocks, in dairies, in whatever the brides can find. So this is just perfect. We are chasing all over Victoria looking for spaces like this, and we've got one right in our backyard. It just works as a space because we can say to them, well, here it is, it's a blank canvas.
And what do you want to do with it?
You can hire anything you want to put in this space. We can bring them here. If we get a wedding for 100 people from Melbourne, that's 100 people that are visiting Geelong. They're going to stay here, they're going to spend their money here. They're going to be involved in the community, and they're going to suddenly find that Geelong's not that far from Melbourne. And they may come down another time or another time.
The spectacle of Fyansford's large spaces is balanced by its labyrinth of nooks and crannies, which make perfect studios. All Things Mosaic is run by Rose Kviz.
Hi Rose, how are you?
Okay, welcome to my creative space.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here today. Who's this with us?
This is Anton. He's the mosaic cat. Yeah, he's
Fantastic.
a resident here.
Terrific.
Well, I was looking for a space, a larger space, because I was running classes in my house. So the owner brought me to this one. He goes, oh look, I've still got a lot of work to do it. Do you want to have a look at it? And I said, oh yes, you know. So I walked in, it was cold, it was July, freezing cold. I walked in here, as soon as I heard the river, I thought, yeah, definitely. I really do love hearing the river. And I like the fact that my students they love coming here purely for the space, as well, of course, doing mosaics. Well, I like to think.
I'm sure it is.
It's my space. Yeah. It's my my creative space. It's my time alone with the river.
river was central to this building's placement and purpose. Alex is capturing moments from that history. This lane is named for the late Paddy Trait, who used to work at the mill in its days as an ice factory.
And he used to take the horse and cart down this alleyway.
Is that where that mark comes from, the cart bumping into the bricks?
He was only 14 or 15 and he was taking ice up into Ballarat. Right. So this was when the water from the race was turned into turning big steel rods into producing electricity, and they made ice.
In its 140 years, Fyansford has served many purposes.
Ran as a paper mill for 50 years, from 1870s to 1920s, and then it was one of the country's early ice factories. It was hydro ice, because it was powered by the hydroelectrics out the back.
Yes, of course, the river's just outside, isn't it?
Then the military occupied the site through the Second World War under compulsory acquisition and made sea mines here.
And new tenants like Graham Horton bring their own layers to the Fyansford story.
I'd been to India and bought a big container load of doors, and when I got back I was sitting across the river just looking over here, and I thought, what am I going to do with them? And then I looked over at the building and I thought, maybe I could do a door gallery, cafe, wine bar. And then wandered across the river and had a look and thought, wow, this place was amazing. I lived in Geelong all my life, knew the building, but as I drove in, I thought, I don't remember this place looking like this, the blue stone, the old blue bricks. It was like driving into a European village, and yet it's 4 k's from Geelong CBD.
I feel like Fyansford inspires people's creativity. Marcus Johnson runs successful communications company Ubu.
I signed up for a lease here, really with no particular plan. I just thought, I love the space. I'll rent this. You know, at worst, we could have just, had it for ourselves, and we could have our Christmas party in here, or I could have used it to make art projects. And then I thought, no, it'd make a really good gallery, and it has. But it was really to do with Alex trying to find people who fitted into his vision of the place, which is as an arts precinct. And a lot of our discussions are about community. Because that's what we want to develop down here, is build an arts and culture community that is available to anyone who comes here.
It's amazing that a creative community is hosted in buildings that were a day away from becoming a container depot. Now they generate business and host a growing creative community.
If you can love a building, I love the building.
You can definitely love a building.
It would just be great if somehow we could get the walls to talk to us, because there would be so much history, so many stories that we could then pass on to the future tenants, like tenants in 50 years' time or something like that.
This is very early industrial that got left behind, and let's hope Ford and Alcoa and those don't take as long to reinvent themselves as this did.
And as industry's moved out, arts has moved in. Same as what's happening everywhere else in Geelong.
We've got fabulous buildings with incredible heritage, great stories. It's an opportunity. Anything to do with the arts, if you can have a sort of big space to work in, is just gold.
Generations after us will get a wonderful feeling of both the buildings and the general area of the river. That's the main vision, and have community input.
The people that I've met since I've been here who've just knocked on the door and said, oh, do you mind if I have a look in? And then they tell me their story and the links to this place and the history that is bound up within the building is sometimes really bloody touching, you know, and I've never thought that people would emotionally invest in buildings, but they do, and it's through history that they do that. And I came here just looking, where can I make wine, how can I make wine? But I know now that I'm just part of the living history, yeah, the story. I'll go at some point and somebody else will come in and I'm okay with that. I think that's great.
Buildings and the landscapes they inhabit are an intimate part of our lives. We neglect them at our cost, for every year they survive connects us to other times. Like a good wine, a fine building only gets better.